Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Shavua Tov Mevorach to everybody. Monday, the 25th day of Menachem Av, the 26th day of August 2019, the Lighthouse Torah Project dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat, Devorah Feige Bat Shemuel, Ora Devorah Bat Shemuel, Leah Bat Yosef, and Esther Rivka Bat Abraham. The iTorah.com dedication for the Shidduchim of Nehamadina Bat Hanabatia, Eliyahu Ben Esther, Sarah Simcha Bat Sofi, Rachel Penina Bat Jenny. I like to... Atena Bat Claudette as well. Today, I'd like to start with a clarification that I realized as I was listening to the class that I made a mistake when I was started to discuss yesterday's Gemara, and I said that the Gemara that I was quoting came from Masechet Shabbat, and I apologize, that Gemara was actually Masechet Berachot. It does not change the fact of the Torah class and what we learn, but I needed to make sure that the source is quoted properly. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shehakol Nehiya V'Tbaro. We are a few days away from Rosh Chodesh Elul, Haba Aleinu Letova, and Rosh Chodesh Elul right away brings upon us the topic of Selihot. Once we say the word Selihot, a lot of things come to our mind. Some of them could be how early we need to get up next week, earlier than usual. Another one is who is going to be the Hazan for the first minyan and second minyan of Selihot. How I'm going to arrange tefillah, Selihot, carpool in order to cover all of the above, which is obvious and you should plan accordingly. Baruch Hashem, as the Kahal knows, we are going to offer 2 minyanim for Selihot. The first one starting at 5:20, Selihot, followed by Shaharit, breakfast and class. Second minyan upstairs, 7 o'clock Selihot, 8 or 8:15 Shaharit, followed by breakfast and class. But put all that on the side. There is one key component on the topic of Selihot, and is the topic of Teshuvah. At the end of the day, the month of Elul is a month given to Am Israel, has a way of coordinating our preparation for Rosh Hashanah. As we know, Rosh Hashanah, we commemorate the creation of Adam Arishon and Hava. We crown Hashem one more time as a king. That is one of the reasons why we blow the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, announcing to the world that Hashem's kingdom is renewed upon us. But needless to say, that to step up to Rosh Hashanah without the preparation of the month of Elul, that is really not a reality. Rosh Hashanah is not only Tiskul Shanim Rabot and dipping the apple in the honey and having seats for the holiday and buying a new suit for the holiday, but actually Rosh Hashanah is how I am going to prepare myself in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is where Chodesh Elul, do me a favor, put a chair for the lady in the corner. This is how Chodesh Elul comes upon yes, right there, beautiful. That's how Chodesh Elul comes upon us. And actually, I like to go back one moment, I make it short hopefully, describing a very interesting banished that we discuss around the time of Tisha B'Av. And the banished discusses that in the management of the Jewish calendar, Yaakov Avinu, he says clearly, has the management of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. The first 3 months of the Jewish calendar, Pesach, Pesach Sheni, and Shavuot, and under the domain of Yaakov. Beautiful. What happens to the next 3 months? Tammuz, Av, Elul belong to Yaakov. Tammuz, Mehila to Esav. Tammuz, meaning the month of 17 of Tammuz. Av, which is the month of Tisha B'Av. And the month of Elul belongs to Esav. But the banished says, אז נתגבר יעקב אבינו עליו השלום, בחטף ממנו את אלול. Yaakov Avinu did certain kind of transaction, put it this way, and there is a hint about it in the Perashah, in Sefer Bereshit. We'll keep it Be'ezat Hashem for Sunday, that is Rosh Chodesh Elul, to find Elul in the Torah, which is obviously found in the Torah, found in the Nevi'im. So there are many hints about the month of Elul. And it says, the Ben Ish Hai, that Yaakov Avinu was able to capture the month of Elul. Historically, the month of Elul was also the 30 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul till Rosh Hashanah, plus 10 days from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur, the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom negotiated with the Kadosh Baruch Hu the forgiveness to Am Israel for the sin of the Egel, the sin of the golden calf. And based on this historical fact, according to the Sephardic tradition, we recite Selichot for 40 days. Why? Because the month of Elul, it's also known as Chodesh HaRachamim. The entire month is the month of mercy. Your birthday is in Elul. Beautiful. My wedding anniversary is also in Elul. So I know Elul close. Anyways, so usually, and I add one more concept, that in the building of the Jewish month, there are two parts of the month. The first half and the second half. And usually, the first half, to a certain extent, is better than the second half. That's the reason why most of the Jewish holidays, they begin in the beginning of the month up to the first half of the month. The only holiday that starts towards the end of the month is Hanukkah, the 25th day of Kislev. Even Simchat Torah tags along to Sukkot, and Sukkot began on the 15th. Pesach, 15th. Purim, 14th. Shavuot, the 6th. Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, the 1st and the 10th. The only holiday that actually starts on the 25th belongs to Hanukkah. Why? The Ben Ish Hai says, because Kislev, Tevet, and Mehillah, Tevet, Shevat, and Adar also belong to Esav. So the celebration of Hanukkah grabbed us a few days from Kislev. We bite into Tevet, because when does Hanukkah finishes? The second day of Tevet. So we have a foot into the month of Tevet, and we took away Adar from Esav, and therefore we have the celebration of Purim in the 14th day of Adar. So, Be'ezat Hashem, as we have been doing for a few years, during the month of Elul, we're going to be learning the beautiful Sefer known as Tomer Devorah. You heard of this book. Some of you have been learning this book with me 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. And Be'ezat Hashem, we follow the beautiful tradition, because at the end of the day, and this is only the opening statement of the Zohar of today. Today's Zohar discusses about the gift of Teshuvah. And the month of Elul is all about Teshuvah. That is the message of the month of Elul. And that's why we have many remazim, many hints about the month of Elul. Ani ledodi vedodi li. That's from chapter 27 of Tehillim. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. In the same chapter, David HaMelech says at the end, Lule he'emanti lir'od betuv Hashem. If you look at the word lule, you read it backwards, gives us the word Elul. Elul he'emanti lir'od betuv Hashem. It says that even though David HaMelech is hinting us, that even though my entire year may have not been the way it should have been, but now Hashem is giving us the zechut, the opportunity of the month of Elul to make up for all the shortcomings of the past year and to prepare ourselves for the next year. But I'm forced to make the following statement. This does not mean, Has v'shalom, that a person may say, you know what, Rabbi, if that's the case, that is a great deal. I'm going to live the way I want 11 months out of the year. Comes Selihot, I come to the prayer, I come to the Selihot, I buy a few aliyot in Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, I make everyone happy, and that's my avodah for the year. So obviously, we are talking about people with Yirat Shamayim, and the fact that we are sitting down and learning Torah, it means that we like to do what is the proper way. So we need to understand that the month of Elul, it's a given opportunity, a gift to each and every one of us to remedy the past and to enhance the future. And that is one of the main reasons why suggested reading of the book Tomer Devorah, written by the great Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, the foundation of this Sefer is Yod Gimel Midot Harahamim, the 13 attributes of mercy, which is a common prayer in the Selihot, in Rosh Hashanah, in Kippur, even today. Vaya'avor Hashem, Hashem Amonai Amonai, Kel Rahum Behanun, Erech Apayim. This is the foundation of the book, and the additional message is, how can I transfer Hashem's behavior into my life? What does it mean? If we remember Friday's Mehillah, Shabbat Torah reading, Perashah Ekev, the Pasuk tells us, what is our mission in this world? Follow the commandments, le'ahava et Hashem Elokechem, to love Hashem, lalechet bechol derachav, to walk in the footsteps of Borei Olam, uldobka bo, and to cling, to be connected, glued. Connected is not the proper word. Uldobka means debekut. How do I glue myself to a Kadosh Baruch Hu? Don't people say sometimes, this fellow is glued to the television, has v'shalom? So take that and connect to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Can you imagine for every minute a person watches TV, learns Torah? Unbelievable. Mashiach will be here in no time. Okay? Nowadays, Apple, on the phone, they have something called screen time. Right? Screen times, it tells you how many hours a day you were watching your phone. You were looking at your phone. They calculate every time you open for an email, for a WhatsApp, and they gives you a shi'ur. WhatsApp, 49 minutes. Emails, 15 minutes. YouTube, 2 hours. Text messages, 49 seconds. Don't try this at home, but listen, take it from me. It's available in your cell phone. So comes Rashi in last week's parasha and ask a very interesting question. The Pasuk says, walk in the footsteps of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and glue yourself to Him. So ask Rashi, how is it possible that a person is able to glue themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So you know what Rashi says? I like to share Rashi verbatim. Lalechet bechol derachav. How do I imitate God? I'm a human being. How significant is one person in the world? Depends who you ask. To somebody who looks at numbers, and it says, okay, the world has 7.5 billion citizens, so one person in the world does not make a difference. But from a Torah perspective, it's completely the opposite. One person is an entire world. You save one life, you save the entire world. So one person can make a difference. As is quoted in the name of many great Sepharim that says, a drop of light dissipates a tremendous amount of darkness. You know, in the Hasidic world, we are called lamp lighters. What does it mean? There is a lamp in each corner of the street. But if that lamp is not ignited by the guard or by the lamp lighter with a bit of fire, the street remains dark. So from a Kabbalistic perspective, it means that every Yehudi carries a flashlight of their neshama, and we can bring light into the world acting in a good way. And the question is, what does it mean to act in a good way? Many people confuse between being a good person and being observant and being religious. And I will have to say something that perhaps is not very popular, but being religious on the spiritual aspect and the observance of the commandments and the mitzvot of the Torah and learning Torah, that is not the only description of what does it mean to be a good person, to be a good Jew. Rashi says, you know what does it mean, someone who follows in the footsteps of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how we interact with others. And Rashi says, Mahu Rahum, Afata Rahum. Like Hashem is compassionate. Hashem has mercy. We need to have mercy on others. Mahu Gomel Hasadim, Afata Tigmol Hasadim. The Sifri says, like Hashem performs kindness towards us, we perform kindness towards other people. And kindness, let's clarify, based on the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah, that kindness, Hesed, is not limited to financial assistance or financial help. Hesed, kindness, can be done physically, can be done verbally. You give a word of encouragement to lift someone's spirit. You visit somebody that is in the hospital. You go, God forbid, and you console somebody that is in mourning, or someone who is down emotionally, and you go to the person and you give the person words of encouragement. You lift the spirit. Guess what? We just did Tehiyat HaMetim. Can you imagine? Can you imagine you live in Florida and you can do Tehiyat HaMetim like Yehezkel HaNavi did? Like we learned yesterday or Shabbat, the resurrection of the dry bones. Guess what? There are people that are alive and their mind is dry. Dry in the sense, and don't take it in a negative way, but the person's spirit is down. Atzvut, sadness. Sadness doesn't need my introduction. We know very well that sadness and depression, they are emotional situations in life that, God forbid, prevents the person of developing the potential that the person has. And that's why David HaMelech said, Ibdu et Hashem besimcha, serve God with joy. Shlomo HaMelech says, Besimachti, beshibachti ani et hasimcha. I pray happiness. The Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Besamachta bechol hatov. Be content in everything that Hashem gives you. In the husband and wife relationship, the Pasuk says, Besimach et ishto, that the husband has an obligation to make the wife happy. Another Pasuk says, Ve'aita ach sameach, be only happy. And I'm quoting all these Pesukim to highlight how much effort and how much emphasis, rather, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketubim tells us about the importance of being a happy person. But not only that, there is a higher level. Mesameach et aherim. You make other people happy. And I'm not telling you start telling jokes to make people happy. That's good occasionally, as long as they are kosher. But the message, obviously only kosher. The message is to lift the spirit of someone that is emotionally down. This is what Rashi explains. What does it mean to imitating a Kadosh Baruch Hu? And then comes the second part of the Pasuk. Uldobka bo. Cling yourself to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And ask Rashi, I don't understand. Already, the Torah says, Ki Hashem Elokecha eshochelahu el kana. It says God is zealot. And the Torah compares to Hashem to fire. So how do you tell me to connect myself with fire? Usually, when we see fire, what do? Hazaku Baruch. We stay away. We run away. There are two things, before I read Rashi, that there are two things in life that a person must run away from. Fire and mahloket. Mahloket means argument between people. Heveboreach min ha'esh, heveboreach min ha'mahloket, keboreach min ha'esh. Run away from argument like we run away from fire. Why? Because argument really, it doesn't bring nothing good. It's the opposite. It creates more and more problems. But the question still remains, how do I cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I'm only saying this because Rashi says it. Rashi says, Hadvek batalmidim ubahachamim. It says, make sure that the surroundings of your life are Torah students and Talmidei Hachamim. And hopefully, and I'm speaking now about myself as a rabbi, and in the name of all my colleagues, in town and out of town, that we hope and pray that our example and our behavior is a good example. Meaning to say, I'll tell you a personal anecdote. Actually, it wasn't an anecdote. It's a true story that happened before we got married. My father, alav shalom, took my wife and I for a meeting. If your father-in-law wants to talk to you, before you get married, what's on the table, right? Right. So by the way, I went through that situation when I met my in-laws for the first time. My father-in-law sat me on the couch for 3 minutes, 5 minutes. He asked me 2-3 questions, and that was the end of the meeting, Baruch Hashem. Happy ending. Okay? I passed it. Yeah, thank God, thank God. Till today, so far. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So my father did the same thing, but from a different perspective. And my father's question to my wife and I was, if after understanding that Be'ezat Hashem I like to pursue the field of the rabbinate, he asked us the following question. And the question was, are you willing to be on display 24 hours a day? In our youthfulness, we didn't understand the question. I understood to be clean. I said, Dad, I'm always clean. He's explained to me, Yosef, that's not what I mean. I don't have to tell you to go clean to the street. But I'm telling you is that when you're a rabbi, you need to understand that you're representing the Torah, you're representing the Hachamim, you're representing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You represent the community. And you're a leading example to the community in a good way. It's like we learned the other day. If a rabbi, Haz v'Shalom, talks in the middle of the Hazara, or talks in the middle of the Kaddish, so what are we expecting from a regular person who says, if the rabbi does it, why I cannot do it? And you know me long enough already. Many people try to speak to me during Hazara, and what do I tell them? Wait. Unless it's a medical emergency. Unless it's an emergency, everything can wait. Obviously, emergency is a whole different shi'ur altogether. And that's what Rashi says. He says, if a person wants to know how to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, stay close to the Hachamim. And I hope and pray to Borei Olam every day that we represent exactly what Rashi expects from the Talmidei Hachamim worldwide to represent for Am Israel. The Zohar of today, now all that being said, so we understand that Teshuvah is a full package. In what sense? Teshuvah of my shortcomings between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we all have areas in life to improve, and my relationship with our fellow men. Ben Adam la makom, Ben Adam la havero. And I don't have to learn one more time or repeat what we learned back in the day, in the time of the students of Rabbi Akiva, or the destruction of the temple, that both tragedies that till today tainted Jewish history are all based on interpersonal relationship. And why do I say this? Because many times people misunderstand what does it mean to do teshuvah. And I said this to someone a few days ago. In Deal, not here, in Deal. Somebody approached me for a certain situation, and he explained. I asked the person a few questions, and he says, you know what? It's beautiful that you do the ceremonial aspect. It was a Shalom Bayit meeting. Sometimes, even remotely, I have customers. Okay? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. If we are able to save a marriage and to guide people properly, why not? Listen, the Gemara writes, Harbe sheluchim lamakom. Borei Olam has many messengers. And sometimes a messenger could be a stranger. A messenger could be a visiting rabbi. A fellow came to me after I gave one of the classes, said, Rabbi, the shiur was all for me. The first thing I asked him was, Mehila, what is your name? In other words, it's not like I know. I say, I see a good korban. I see a good practice target. I don't know. I never knew who this person is. I never met him in my life. I said, okay, Baruch Hashem, if I came and it was the shaliach. So I said to the person, all these spiritual steps that you are doing are very beautiful and are very powerful. But I think that you neglected one of the key components of your teshuvah. Says, which one? Your shalom bayit. Your communication with your wife. Your respect to your wife. Your interaction with the spouse. And comes the Zohar of today and begins with a very powerful statement. Beautiful statement. Rule number one, the Zohar says, there is nothing that stands against the way of teshuvah. Meaning to say, even that the person may have committed, has v'shalom, transgressions. But I'm not talking about skipping one tefillah or waking up late. Let's say worse tefillah. You know, we learned in the Daf Yomi class the other night, 36 transgressions that, has v'shalom, are very dangerous to the life of the person. I tell you a few. One was eating bread in Pesach, in purpose. Not unintentionally, in purpose. Leachais. Another one, eating in Kippur. And no medical reason, no health reason. A person says, you know what? I'm mahmir. I make kiddush in Kippur. Has v'shalom. Obviously, we don't know people who act in this way. And I believe that many averot, many sins that we commit, many times is due to the lack of knowledge. And there are parameters on the averot. If the person does it unintentionally, or a person does it willingly, or a person does it dafka to go against Hashem, but yet the Zohar says, Shim hozer b'tshuva, that if a person regrets the sins that he or she committed, and the person takes upon themselves to reignite the life of godliness and spirituality, the averot turn into mizvot. Now it doesn't make sense. Imagine yourself, you go now to Aventura Mall. It's already open. Okay? You go and you go to spend money. You slide the credit card. You go to Macy's, you go to Bloomingdale's, you go to whatever store they have, okay? And you spend money. And every time you spend money, today you can have your bank sends you a text, please verify the transaction. And at the end of the day, you spend $2,000, let's say, in 8 transactions. Beautiful. And at the end of the month, the credit card company, instead of sending you a bill with a balance of 2,000, they send you a bill with a 0 balance. They said, we are nice to you. All your debits became credits. Does it make sense? Will you think that it will ever happen? Never. The only time that it will happen if it was a fraudulent charge or you are disputing the charge. Other than that, if we confirm that I was the fellow who swiped the car in the supermarket, I have to pay. But in Averot and Teshuvah, doesn't work like that. Now, the idea, as the Gemara writes, is not that the person will say, Rabbi, you made my day. I'm going to do a few Averot, and when Rosh Hashanah and Kippur comes, I'm going to do Teshuvah. The Gemara says, Ha'omer eheta be'ashuv be'yom ha'kippurim mechaper. A person who says, I will sin, and I will do Teshuvah, because Yom Kippur is coming, and that alone, the holiness and the sanctity of Yom Kippur brings forgiveness upon the person. En mesapekim beyado la'asot teshuvah. That person, the opportunity of doing teshuvah is removed from him. Has v'shalom. But why? What is the purpose of the Gemara telling us this? I think the Gemara is telling us, we understand that a person can fall under the Yetzer Hara spell or the Yetzer Hara management. But understand that we don't drown in a cup of water. Like there is the Yetzer Hara, is the power of Teshuvah. And it says, even Adam Harishon, you know, the Zohar elsewhere writes that when Hashem was about to create mankind, the Torah and the Malachim said, Ha'adam, the person that you are about to create, Atid le'ahati negdecha, is going to turn against you. And if you know, let's bring an example. Let's say that a person has an allergy to a certain type of food. You eat the food and your body reacts in a certain way. Sometimes could be an allergy reaction, like a nut reaction, or the food will become very digestive. Most people, knowing that the food can have an allergy reaction, will not eat it. Let's talk about something that doesn't have an allergy reaction, but it causes weight gain or inflammation of the body. Many times the person will say, you know what, I'm going to avoid it. But many times the person says, you know what, I'm going to eat. I'm going to say a beracha rishona. I'm going to say beracha harona. Then I'm going to walk the circle. And then I'm going to lose the weight. And we know that in reality, that doesn't happen very often. So the Zohar Kadosh writes that there was opposition to a Kadosh Baruch Hu when it came to the creation of Adam and Hava. It says, you're buying yourself a headache. Don't create mankind. And then you'll have a very peaceful life. Obviously, to our benefit, Hashem did not agree to this suggestion, to the angel situation. And what did God do? The Zohar says, they started to read the Torah. They started to read the Perashiyot of the Sefer. Bereshit, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayera, Hayesara, etc. They go to Sefer Shemot. Shemot, Vayera, Bo, Beshalach, Itro, Mishpatim, Teruma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa. They come across Perashah Kitisa. What is Perashah Kitisa all about? No, wait. The sin of the golden calf. The sin of the golden calf, it's written in the Perashah Kitisa. But what else It's written in Perashah Ki Tisa, the Zohar says, and we know this, Yod Gimal Midot Harahamim. The 13 attributes of mercy, which is the way that Hashem runs the world. And that is to our benefit, to our advantage. Because if the world will not be run by a 99.9 of mercy and compassion, how our life will be. Haz v'shalom. So the Zohar says, they started to read, Amonai, Amonai, Kel Rahum Behanun. So God asked the Malachim, when the Torah says, Amonai, Amonai, Kel Rahum Behanun, Hashem's name of compassion, Hashem has benevolence, Hashem has mercy on the person. Who is this referring to? Tzaddikim, righteous people, don't need Hashem's mercy. It meaning to say, if you're a good student and you have all good grades in your report card, and all the comments from the teachers is wonderful student, participant, well-behaved, respectful, is there a question that this child is going to be passing to the next grade? No questions. Who is the question? Yosef needs to behave better in class. For example, and that is a question. I'm talking about myself. I can't say your name. You understand? I can only speak about myself. By the way, this was one of the comments when I was a child. A teacher did. He says, Yosef is a wonderful student, is an excellent student, but he moves too much in class. Today they will call that ADHD or ADD, maybe, who knows, right? Yeah. Today are labels. But I'll tell you now, going back to elementary school, I was a bit bored. I was a bit bored. And in those days, they didn't have different levels like you have today. I think they have different levels in the classroom, different classes for each grade. For us, was one grade per class. So you have to wait till everybody finish to move on. But Baruch Hashem, as I mature, I learn how to behave a bit better. But going back to the concept of Hashem is telling the Malachim, you know who my mercy is? For the person who needs a lifeline. A person who needs a new lease in life. I'm not talking about car lease. But what they say, a person got a new lease in life. This is what Teshuvah is. Continues the Zohar Kadosh. And it brings different sources from different kings. And it says one more benefit. Teshuvah shoberet umbatelet kama gezerot bedinim beshalshelaot shel barzel. It says the power of Teshuvah, it is so great that breaks down negative decrees against the person, dinim, judgment against the person, beshalshelaot shel barzel, and metal chains. Now, we understand accusations. We understand judgment. What is the chains of metal? It says, the Zohar Kadosh, Hem malachei habbala, hasobebim et ahadam leha'anisho. I usually don't speak in this way, but because the Zohar of today brings it, I'm going to say it. The Zohar says, there are two types of worlds in the physical earth. One is the visible world, and then is the invisible world. The visible world is what we see. I see him, I see him, I see myself on the screen, I see the clock, I see the ocean, I see the building. All that belongs to the physical and visible type of world. But the Zohar hints to us that there is a parallel world of spiritual forces, the positive forces and the negative forces. This is called the power of Kedusha and the power of Tum'ah. How is this world created? Short answer, we create that world. What does it mean? My good deeds, your good deeds, everyone good deeds creates good malachim. Every amen, every beracha, every baruch hu baruch shemo, every mitzvah of charity, every moment of Torah that we learn, that is gorgeous, that is beautiful, because we are populating the spiritual world with a lot of good, positive vibe and energy and light of godliness, etc. But regretfully, the opposite is the same. When, God forbid, a person acts or says or does things which are not proper, respectful, suitable, or allowed from the Torah perspective, we create also negative forces in the world. And the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, "Ha'oseh mizvah had, koneh lo sanegor echad. Ha'oseh avera had, koneh lo kategor echad." The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot puts it very simple. For every mitzvah, we have a defending angel. For every avon, we have an accusing angel. And part of the gift that Hashem gives us daily, and this is one of the first or second chapter of Tomer Devorah, that says that even when the person doesn't act properly, Borei Olam protects the person. That is the only answer of how could it be that irrelevant of our spiritual life, our life continues the same. That is part of Hashem's Hesed. Can you imagine if God will say, oh, because you did a lot of mitzvot, you have money in your account. Because you did a lot of averot, you have no money in your account and you're going to be in bed for 3 days. Has v'shalom. God forbid. Thank God that doesn't happen. Where does that come from? The Zohar says, out of the mercy of Borei Olam. But it comes a point that we run out of excuses. How many months can a person be behind on a mortgage before the bank starts proceedings? 3 months. How many months can a person be late in the lease or in the financing of the car before the bank repossesses the car? More or less. How many months can a person be late in the rent and not being evicted from the landlord? Same thing. So we understand how many strikes in baseball? 3, you see? Unbelievable. Everything is 3. 3 masot also. Anyways, Hamavdil, right? But, so we understand that even that there is a certain flexibility that the bank may let it go the first month, and the second month they send you a letter, and by the 3rd or 4th month they begin has v'shalom, eviction and foreclosure. The Zohar says that in the building of averot in the account of the person, also there is a limit. The problem with this statement is that there is no an equal allowance. Each person has a different DNA. Each person has a different number in cholesterol, in white cells and red cells. And each person has a different number of allowance that Shamayim says, okay, you have insurance. But once you reach your max, we need to deal with a headache. So the Zohar says that the power of Teshuvah is so great that is able to evaporate and to annihilate and to erase all the negative forces that are waiting for a green light to start activating judgment in the life of a person. Now, to finish today's class, there is more ideas, but basically the Zohar concludes and saying that a person should never say, Teshuvah is impossible for me. God forbid, there is no such a thing. The Talmud has a lot of stories that people had behavior that is not even permissible to speak about it publicly, and their teshubah was accepted, even in the final moments of their lives. Obviously, the idea is not to wait till the last minute. Shlomo HaMelech writes, Zechor et borecha bimei bechurotecha. The younger the person is, the better the teshubah is. That doesn't mean that if a person is 60, 70, 80, or 90, says, you know what, I missed the boat. No. As long as the fire, meaning to say the neshama, it's alive, the person is physically alive and physically able to do so, do teshubah. The question is, where do we start? So, there is no clear-cut answer. Shlomo HaMelech says, Yodea Saddik Nefesh Behemto. Translation means, the righteous knows their own deficiencies. You don't have to publicize it. You don't have to say it. For someone could be saying berachot before eating. For someone could be saying Asher Yatzar after coming out of the bathroom. For somebody could be to eat kasher outside of the home as well as they eat inside the home. For another person may be just welcoming Shabbat earlier and not just gambling with time. For another person, doing teshubah meaning to do shalom bayit, to have better peace at home. For another person, doing teshubah could be to learn more Torah. I mean, the sky is the limit. And no one is expecting that teshubah is an overnight project. It's not an overnight. Overnight is a FedEx package, Amazon delivery. Teshubah is a process. And sometimes it's better to take one step at a time than jumping 2, 3, 4 steps, because the fall is even greater. And falling is okay. Falling, I'm not telling you to fall, God forbid. Don't look for challenges. But David HaMelech says in the book of Tehillim that says, Sheva ipol sadik vakam. 7 times a righteous can fall and he gets up. So your question may be, Rabbi, if he falls, why do you call him a righteous? Short answer, because he's able to get up and get higher. Like the pitcher of baseball, right? What does he need to do? He needs to go back in order to assert greater distance in the opposite side of the field. And this is what teshubah is. An opportunity to remedy the mistakes of the past with sincerity, and hopefully these mistakes will not be repeated. But even if has v'shalom, they may be repeated, there is always the teshubah. As we say in the Selihot opening page, Ki eminecha peshuta lekabel shavim. Right after Ashrei and the first song of Selihot, we have this sentence. Hashem's right hand, which is Hesed, is extended to welcome those who want to go back. So my suggestion is, do your homework. Nobody needs to know on what area of life we are going to work. Could be between me and Hashem, could be between me and my fellow men. I like to suggest one of each at least, if not 2 of each. Small, attainable baby steps. Because a person who does teshubah, and this will finish by Ezat Hashem, a person who does teshubah, from a spiritual perspective, that element of teshubah makes the person to be a newborn. A newborn. Can you imagine that a person suddenly becomes a newborn? This is the ultimate gift of teshubah. My good friends, Shavua Tov everybody. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. We'll see each other later. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך. הרבה להם תורה מצוות שנאמר,